Hello, and welcome back to It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. We're your host, Ann Dark.
And Tracy Stormy.
Welcome back. We are going to be discussing our B-book today. It'll be our second review, so we're excited to get started. But it's finally springtime here in Maryland, and
it was a long time coming.
Yes, it was. Maryland is famous for having very short springs, so we have to enjoy it while we can. It'll go to hot and muggy very quickly. But it was good to get out in the garden and be able to feel my hands in the dirt for a while this weekend.
Thank you so much for tuning back in with us. We continue to try to improve. One thing we improved is hopefully the audio. Who would have thunk you need to have the microphone facing you?
We didn't read the instructions, so we thought we were smarter than the book, but we'll see. Maybe we'll sound a little better in this episode. We have to get better. We can't get much worse. So, shall we jump into our book?
Definitely.
All right, we're going to be discussing Dogs and Englishmen by Elizabeth Kane Buzzelli, and it is the fourth book. We did it again, unfortunately.
Whoops, we did it again.
Hopefully that's the last one where we will be in the middle of a series. We'll try really hard not to do that anymore. But this is the fourth book, and Elizabeth Kane Buzzelli, who also writes under the name Elizabeth Lee, is a Michigan-based novelist. She has written 13 books. She teaches fiction writing at Northern Michigan College, and she has written for the Northern Express, the Romeo Observer, the Detroit News, and the Record Eagle. She's a member of a long list: the Authors Guild, the International Association of Crime Writers, Sisters in Crime, Mystery Writers of America, Michigan Writers, and the Detroit Working Writers.
Whew.
She has 3 mystery series: the Emily Kincaid series, the Little Library series, and then the Nut House series. She writes that under the name Elizabeth Lee. There are also a couple of standalone books that she writes. As I said, Dead Dogs and Englishmen is the fourth book in the Emily Kincaid series, and we will jump into that now.
For my synopsis, I'm going to actually read a review from the Kirkus Review because I just thought it was very interesting. The Kirkus Review rated this the best book of 2011. Something nasty is afoot in Emily Kincaid's northern Michigan town, besides Emily's increasingly cranky friend, Deputy Dolly. When the body of a brutally slain woman turns up in an abandoned farmhouse, Emily and Dolly uncover a disturbing pattern. Bodies of dead dogs are being thrown into migrant Mexican workers' yards, a gruesome warning to keep someone's despicable secret. Clues to unravel this macabre affair seem woven into the manuscript Emily is editing for Cecil Hawke, an eccentric English author. Each page paints an eerily familiar picture of intimidation, madness, and murder. But reading further into the Englishman's twisted fiction could spell Emily's untimely death.
Ooh, yes. So what did you like best about the book?
I enjoyed Buzzelli's character development. I felt that each character stayed very true to form. They didn't stray in one direction that you were surprised about. I felt like I really knew these people. And I think that's a rare talent in writing.
I agree. She did an excellent job of describing her characters, and I could get a clear picture in my head of each character as she described them.
Well, if you were casting a movie, who would you cast in some of these very interesting parts?
As Emily, I would put somebody like Cameron Diaz, around that age, not too old, not too young.
Maybe a Reese Witherspoon, something.
Yeah, they're all sort of in that same era.
Absolutely.
For Dolly, I would put Alex Borstein, who starred in the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel series on television. I thought she was excellent, and she was kind of my picture of Dolly.
For fans of Game of Thrones, if she was a little shorter, I would put Gwendolyn Christie. who played Brianna of Tarth. She was just such a tough character on that series. That's who I pictured, only if she would have lost about a foot in height.
Yeah. Harry, I would put somebody like a Wilford Brimley. I know he's...
I'd say more of like a Bruce Dern, but, an
that...
older gentleman who's kind of scruffy.
And gruff around the edges. Now for Cecil, I would put somebody like Search Back in History.
We're going to age ourselves.
Right. I would pick somebody like a Paul Lynde.
Or an Alan Suze. Somebody just a little flamboyant.
But still a little wacky. And maybe even Noel Coward himself would make a good Cecil.
I think Cecil worked very hard to be like Noel Coward, so that wouldn't be a stretch.
Right. And then I would put somebody like Uma Thurman in as Lila.
It would have to be somebody kind of tall and thin and refined, like a Nicole Kidman or something like that.
Yeah. Which of these characters in this book would you like to meet in real life if you
Definitely Harry. Oh, I think I have a slight hippie side and would love to just hang out with him and learn how to live off the land, and him in his funeral suit, and that just did it for me.
I would agree with that. I'd like to
Or
meet.
maybe Sorrow. Because I have a thing for dogs, so I would definitely like to hang out with Emily's dog, Sorrow. Once again, I don't think we said this in the beginning. I hope you read the book, because none of this is going to make any sense if you didn't.
That's true. The setting in the book really could have been any rural area in the country. It did not really have to be in Michigan itself. I agree. The area could have been New Hampshire, it could have been Maine, it could have been anywhere migrant workers go to work seasonal.
Yeah, I think
it
was important.
Farms.
The setting would have to be a rural area, definitely. It couldn't have taken place in a city or a suburb. It would have to be something rural. But other than that, it could have happened in Timbuktu.
Very true. Now, here's a question for you. Who would you like to smack upside the head?
I usually have a definitive answer on this, and because there's always somebody that you just do not jive with. And of course, the obvious answer would be Cecil and his wife. But other than that, I really didn't take issue with any of the other characters in this book, other than the fact I don't have an answer for this one this time.
There weren't any characters that I really like to smack upside the head, but I would like to give Emily a little chat. She and I do not see together. She does not know how to say no. And if my ex-husband knocked on my door and even telling me he had a job for me, there's a reason someone is an ex. And she should have known that from his reputation and his history that he was going to play her. And he had some underlying issue or reward that he was going to get out of this relationship. He wasn't thinking of her and her career. And I think she should have really thought things over before she jumped at taking a job that your ex-husband recommended you for. But that's me.
Did you feel this book was realistic or far-fetched?
I thought it was realistic in the fact that there are a lot of these small towns where migrant workers come in the spring and the fall and they do their work and then they're gone again. And these farmers don't really, well, some of them come back year after year and they develop a relationship with the farm owners. And I'm sure there are unscrupulous people in this world who take advantage of the migrant workers. That part, unfortunately, is something that does happen in the real world.
And very topical right now, actually.
And the dog fighting issue, unfortunately, happens too often in this world. The animal cruelty in this book really bothered me.
Actually, Elizabeth Kane Buzzelli, when we contacted her to ask her questions, the first email she sent us was why she wrote this book. And now that you say that, I think it's an appropriate time to tell you about that. She wrote this book. She says, as to the choice of Dead Dogs and Englishmen, it is one of my favorites, although animal lovers have called foul because I kill off a dog. I've never yet had anyone complain about a single person I've horribly murdered. Anyway, the impetus behind this book was breaking news about a dog fighting ring in Michigan. I was sickened and wanted to give at least one of the dogs a voice, and so I let Freddie win in the end. Even saved Dolly. I have never felt so good about an ending in my life. So there you go. I think she spoke very eloquently about her reasonings for writing that book. And absolutely, I agree that this book seemed very realistic to me. There's bumbling detectives or bumbling police officers, and Dolly bumbled her way through quite a bit of this. And there's also very wealthy people who live in a whole different world than we do.
That's for sure. And even when Emily is sitting and talking to Cecil and he reaches out and just yanks the poor dog's ear or pokes him just to inflict pain, that just bothered me so much because I don't have a dog myself, but I can't see anybody being cruel to an animal. And if Freddie had bitten him, I would have cheered him on.
Well, he does fight him in the end.
Well, in the end, yes, but not as the story progressed.
Did you piece together what happened, or did you figure it out early?
In the beginning of the book, that was one of my criticisms of the book. Very early on, they mentioned that there was a dog fighting ring, and so it wasn't a big surprise when later in the story, that kind of, you knew it was coming. It had to be a dog fighting ring. It was just very obvious. And of course, you knew Cecil was going to be the bad guy.
He was set up to be the bad guy.
Yes, and his friend.
It was a journey, and it arrived at where we thought we just didn't know how we were going to get there.
It was not, in this book, you know who the bad people are, so it's no big shock. It was not Joe Smith over here was the killer after all this build-up to Cecil and Toomey. It was a very good read as far as building up tension as we go to...
Because even though you knew how you were going to get there, it was still put together very well, and I enjoyed the story.
Oh, definitely. It was
because it's not like there were no surprises.
Oh, no.
Cecil's stepdaughter showing up. I was not expecting that.
That was very good. When Lila gets killed, and at her funeral, when his stepdaughter arrives.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Lila to get killed either. So
well, somebody had to get killed in this
yeah,
book.
I guess
hoping it might be Cecil, but Cecil was very clever in that he was around around when the actual murder happened.
Conveniently,
and that's what happened with his first wife also. That's why the stepdaughter is there, and she informs everybody. She always shows up when one of Cecil's wives dies.
That was her words.
Exactly.
In our last book that we reviewed, there were lots of plot twists and red herrings. What did you think about this story? Did you think we had that in this story?
Well, I think the only real cover-up and question in this whole book really was the dogs being put on the porches of the migrant workers. It was who was doing this and why. The identity of the woman who was found in the beginning of the book, that was sort of a mystery. Those were really the only questions that had to be answered by the end of the book. Everything else was pretty much straightforward. It was out there, and the book she was reviewing answered all the questions about Cecil.
And I thought that was a good dimension to the story. Very well played as far as I'm concerned, with giving you a little bit of background about Cecil, and you didn't know, you almost felt uncomfortable about it. Like, is this him or is this somebody else? Or so I thought that was very clever.
That was a different way of approaching a mystery. You knew somebody was a bad guy. Now, was it Cecil himself or